It's time for the Hockey Writers Grind Line, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy the grind.
Welcome to the Hockey Writers Grind Line. I'm your host, Kyle Knopp, and today I'm joined by my line mates, Devin Little and Logan Horn, and we are talking Red Wings hockey. Before we get into it, the Grind Line is brought to you by our sponsor, Ticket IQ. If you are looking for Red Wings tickets without having to pay those pesky checkout fees, try Ticket IQ. Ticket IQ has zero fees and will save you 10 to 20% versus sites like StubHub. Believe me, it's the best out there, and it's nice to know what you're going to spend, as the price you see is the price you play. Hey, plus, Ticket IQ gives each transaction an A through F rating based on how good of a deal it is, so it takes the guesswork out of ticket buying. Again, that's ticketiq.com. Look for it in the description for an app download link so you can get started browsing the best deals on tickets. Also, while you're down there, drop us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on all of the top and best Hockey Writers content. All right, let's jump right into it. We're talking one good, one bad from the week, and I'll start things off since I'm already talking a ton. And my good this week is the World Junior Championship. It was a fantastic tournament. Halifax and Moncton were fantastic host cities. I'm excited to see what the future of the tournament holds. Red Savage looked amazing for Red Wings prospect fans, and Michigan State Spartans should be extremely happy for Trey Augustine coming up in the near future. So that's going to be my good. And then my bad today, Friday, was the final day of the Morning Skate newsletter, a publication I've been working on for the last 2 years almost. And just was such a pleasure to bring all of you hockey fans your morning news. And it'll be a sad step in the next direction. But again, I had such a blast putting that together. So that'll be my good, one bad for the week. So Logan, let's head over to you. One good, one bad from this past week.
All right. My good for the week is that the Red Wings are finally starting to get healthy again. It's come and gone in waves this year. And it's on the uptick again. It's good to see some people back, like Robbie Fabry. It's good to finally see him in the lineup. It looks like he's playing Friday night and then probably going to rest on the second day of the back-to-back, which is something that's kind of new to the NHL, is actually like resting people coming back from injuries, but I think it makes a lot of sense. It looks like Tyler Bertuzzi's close to coming back, maybe this weekend or sometime next week. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's fun to actually have all the good players that your team has playing in the games. My bad is like half bad, half good, and we'll talk more about this later. But just the fact that Alex Nedeljkovic has struggled enough that he needed to be kind of kept out of games so that he could be sent down to the AHL for a conditioning stint without needing waivers. He wasn't bad enough that they just put him on waivers, which is a decent sign. And it is a good thing that this is an option for them, that they can actually get him some games. But this is really not the look that you want from your starting goalie last year, someone that you were hoping could be a real solid 1B tandem guy. It's not a great look, but we're still optimistic. We'll talk about that later too.
And, you mentioned having everyone back, and it's going to lead to sort of a good but bad, and we'll talk about it more. And that's having multiple players that you have to make room for on your roster. So that's also, there's good and bad with that on both sides. So Devin, over to you. One good, one bad from this past week.
I got two bads and a good. I start with some bad news. Everybody's got killed.
Give us a bad sandwich.
Bad sandwich. Yeah, those are the kind of sandwiches I make. They were stomped 5-1 against the Devils. Didn't like seeing that. But the good in that is that A, they weren't shut out. Woohoo! And then B, Lucas Raymond scored with assists from Dylan Larkin and Mo Sider. That's about as good as you can write it up, basically, at least from where I'm standing. So if they're going to get one goal in the game, let it be that box score stat line, basically. And then the other bad I want to share is, and I feel like this is more of a knock on the Red Wings overall defense over the last month or so. But Ville Husso, after he had like Shesterkin-esque numbers
Yeah.
a month and a half ago. He currently, before tonight's game against the Panthers, has a .904 save percentage and a 2.94 goals against average. And the thing that concerns me is that it's basically been since December that his numbers have really taken a hit. And that's what happened with Nedeljkovic last year. Nedeljkovic started out really good, was stealing games for the Red Wings. Looked like he could have been their MVP through the first half of the season. And then December hit and things just kind of fell off. And we know how that season ended. And we're seeing the exact same thing happen to Husso now. So hopefully they can kind of turn things around. To Logan's point, there's a lot of guys coming back to the lineup, and that should equal some more wins and more puck possession. So hopefully Husso's numbers can bounce back.
Yeah, one silver lining off of that, though, Devin, at least in my mind, is last year Ned had Thomas Greiss behind him, who wasn't doing much better to help when he was struggling. And this year, Husso at least has Hellberg, who seems to be a bright spot so far, and Ned, who's going to be bouncing back soon. So, there are options back there to hopefully help Husso out of his funk as well and get back on the right track. Excellent points, both of you guys. So let's move on. And we kind of briefly alluded to this, but let's jump right into this discussion. Jakub Vrana was placed on waivers to the surprise of all of the NHL world and then cleared. So as Vrana passes through waivers and is officially signed to the Grand Rapids Griffins right now, what are your thoughts on what this means for his future in the Red Wings organization? And Devin, I'm coming to you first.
Well, first and foremost, I think it needs to be said that if the NHL wasn't a salary cap league, I don't think Vrana gets through unclaimed. I think one of the teams with no salary cap space right now claims him. And a team that's like looking to win a Stanley Cup too at that. But as it was kind of a calculated risk to put him on waivers. There are only a handful of teams that could even afford to claim him. And most of them are teams that are trying to lose games right now, not win them. So it was surprising. And it even took, at least speaking for myself, it took a couple of hours to sort of wrap my head around it. But once I kind of got my head wrapped around it, it started to make sense. And then when he cleared, it was like, all right, so clearly Buffalo didn't want him because they were the only team that really stood out as like they could get him.
Yeah.
The other thing, my other thought on it is I got to watch Vrana play on New Year's Eve. I'm thinking I'm going to have to get tickets to one more game because I want to see him play some more. He didn't score. He didn't get that hat trick we talked about in the last episode. He did get some shots off. He definitely is trying to get those goals. Hopefully they get in for him. And then also just final thought here. I think that ultimately this was a creative solution to that log jam, at least a first solution. I know we weren't pitching the idea of waiving Vrana, but he's through now, which means he can have as much time as he needs at Grand Rapids to recover from his time in the players assistance program, and also get his mojo back. It's not like a conditioning stint where he's got 2 weeks, then he has to come back. He's down there as long as they want him to be down there now. And I think that maybe even takes a load off of his shoulders where, he doesn't have to be going in 2 weeks. If it takes him a month, it takes him a month. And now they've got a secret weapon kind of hanging out in the AHL. So, ultimately this was a big old gamble. Like I said, we didn't expect to see this coming, but it worked out. And I think that ultimately long term, it's going to work out not only for the Red Wings, but for Vrana too.
Yeah, I was joking with Logan before we recorded about how Yzerman's out there playing 4D chess because
for real.
last week, if either of us had said, hey, we should waive Vrana so we can make room for Adam Ernie and Philip Zadina.
The show would have been canceled.
Yes, we would have been chased out of this YouTube space. It would have been the first pitchfork public display on YouTube, I think, getting us out of there. Logan, I want to get your thoughts on Vrana passing through waivers and what this means with him officially signed to the Grand Rapids Griffins.
Okay, so the biggest thing that I've taken from this, we've known for a while now, basically a year, that since the cap has been so flat, the salary cap limit hasn't increased much at all for years now. Scoring wingers are not very valuable on the trade market. At free agency right now, they're not really that valuable. You saw, was it Oliver Bjorkstrand traded from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Kraken for almost nothing? Max Pacioretty traded for future considerations, which is insane. He's also coming back soon for a Carolina team that's really good right now, so that's not fair. But like cap space might be more valuable than goals in the NHL right now, which sounds insane and sounds like it doesn't make any sense. But tons of numbers were circulating when Vrana was announced on waivers of his like 5v5 goal rate per 60 minutes, because he doesn't play a lot of minutes over the last few years. And he's right near the top of the league, which is incredible. And nobody went for it just because of his cap, and nobody could afford it. And cap space is more important than goals. It's kind of true. It's a great thing for Detroit that no one took him. Another thing I learned is that I will never play a game of chicken with Steve Yzerman.
For sure.
Because I don't want to die. Yeah, or poker. I don't want to meet him. I feel like I'm too scared of him now. If he was willing to do this and it worked, like, that guy's not human. I don't understand. But this is a great thing for Vrana. It's great that like you guys were saying, he doesn't have to be in shape in 2 weeks. He can take the time he needs to get up to speed. He doesn't have that extra pressure that he's needed in the NHL in the next week or whatever. Like, that has to be a lot of pressure, having not played for several months. So he gets the time to get into shape, get up to speed, get his confidence going, hopefully soon. And then he can play when he's ready. It doesn't look like Detroit is really gonna make a playoff spot this year. There's a chance, and he would be a huge addition towards the end of the season if they're making that push. But even if they're not, that pressure is also not on him. He doesn't have to show up and carry them into or through the playoffs or anything like that. They just want him to get back to who he can be, and that's a great goal scorer. So if they can give him all the freedom, all the time and space to do that, that's perfect. So it was a real weird day when you found out until the announcement that he cleared.
24 hours, yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. But I think we're all better for it because it was fun.
I'll tell you what, talk about a person who can read the room and read the situation, and knowing that he could put a bona fide goal scorer up for anyone to grab, and he would get them back, to be able to send down into having, like you said, Devin, a unstressed and unrushed time in the minors in which he can really just take that opportunity to really get his stride back and really get going again. And Logan, like you said, bring him up at the end of the year to get back, at NHL speed. But you can do it in a way that he doesn't have to feel the pressure that it's on him to carry the team or, deliver for the team or the city, but you can ease him back in and really just kind of have him prepared for the next season with this team that's coming up. So, fantastic move by Steve Yzerman. A lot of people were questioning it in the first few hours of it, and then as the day went on, you could see the more and more trusting the Yzer plan coming out, and then once it cleared, oh man, I'll tell you what, a million people at once said, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So
I knew it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
trusted him the whole time. Like,
nothing better captures having Steve Yzerman as a GM than that 24 hours where he makes a move, you go, what are you doing, Steve? What are you thinking? And then within the 24 hours, you go, oh, he's a genius. It's the cider pick all over again.
Cider pick, the Mantha trade. Honestly, it's we get it almost once a year, which is fantastic. But at the same time, it keeps our pacemakers on point. So, but I mean, fantastic. Just way to read the situation, knowing that he's going to make it through, because really only one or maybe two teams had a legit chance at wanting to take him and affording to take him. And just knowing that, now Vrana is just going to be able to take his time and get back to the player he is. And I think this is going to be way better for the player developmental side than the team side way down the road. And so I think this was just, a fantastic move by Yzerman. So I like the move. I would love to see Vrana tearing things up in Grand Rapids soon, but if it takes him a while, then that's okay. We're going to let him be down there and have his fun and hanging out with Devin. So we'll get after it that way. All right, that's going to send us off on our first rush. So max of 20 seconds, 2 questions. First question, Logan, will Vrana return to the Wings lineup this season? And if so, when?
I think he will, probably in March.
Okay, Devin?
Yeah, same answer basically. I do think he will, and it'll probably be like after the trade deadline.
Agreed. I think he will. I could see maybe late February if he's really having a good run down in Grand Rapids, but I agree. I think it will be after the deadline. All right, a little nostalgia time. Devin, what was your favorite morning skate moment?
I loved any opportunity you had to cheer on my Western Michigan Broncos.
Touche. Logan.
I'll say all of those times you so graciously promoted my work. I actually do really appreciate it.
I'll take it. I mean, I have too many to mention in 20 seconds. So I'll just say having the opportunity to work with such great writers as Ben, Christy, and Brooke, and then also, allowing my time when Pat was with us to really work alongside of him even further. So, great friendships I've made, and, had a blast bringing you the best hockey content on the planet. Okay, we're going to take a breath and reset the show. This is the Grind Line. I am Kyle Knopp here with Devin Little and Logan Horn, and we're talking Red Wings hockey. Before we get back into it, we want to remind you to check out Ticket IQ, the best way to get tickets to the big game. Find your deal at ticketiq.com. All right, going back to Grand Rapids, now we're talking to Nedeljkovic. He was assigned to the Griffins on a conditioning stint, stopping 26 of 27 shots in his first start. Are you optimistic that this will help turn his season around? And Logan, coming to you first.
Sure. I mean, I'm generally a pretty optimistic person, so I am. I feel like this, I don't know, Ned can kind of only go up from here, from this season, to be honest. Building some confidence, helping the Griffins win a few games. I don't see how any of those are negative things. He's shown the ability to succeed in the NHL before, as recent as last year. Had a couple games this year that he's looked really solid. Just needs to find that consistency again. And I think getting this chance to play a few games where losing doesn't directly, it's not a direct consequence for the Red Wings, taking that pressure off of him might help him just play his game. And goaltending is such a mental game. It's so much more in your head than any other position. And so who knows, maybe that's been weighing on him a little bit. And that's why they set up this situation so that he could sit on the bench for a little while and then go down to the AHL and get some games where the pressure's a little lower. He doesn't feel like he's letting the team down maybe as much. I think it'll be a positive. I hope that he gets a couple wins, makes some good saves, and can come back and just kind of work his way back in slowly, but just get that consistency back. I hope that works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points there, Logan. I mean, Ned can really only go up. I mean, if he doesn't, then we won't see him anymore, but he can really only go up from here. So great point there, Logan. Devin, over to you. your house is getting full with Vrana, and now Nedeljkovic coming over to spend time with you. What are your thoughts on this optimistic start to his conditioning stint? Sorry, I lost it.
A good billet family there.
Yeah.
All of you.
Should I make them start paying rent, or is that a little too much? Anyways,
They can afford it. They can afford it.
true. Very, very true. I am optimistic, and maybe this is a slight hot take, but I think that conditioning stints work the best for goalies.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because goalies usually get into the groove when they make saves, right? We see it all the time where like goalies prefer to see more rubber than less rubber.
Yeah.
And that's, it's kind of how they get into the groove. That's how they get, into their into the flow of things, for lack of better words. And for whatever reason, some of it's his fault, some of it's the team in front of him. Ned hasn't been making a lot of saves when he's with the Red Wings. And with the Griffins, I think he'll be seeing a lot of rubber for whatever reason. Their goalies are always facing a lot of rubber, and they're a lot of like prime chances too. We can have a whole conversation about that in another episode. But I think
Rachel
Ned
back for that.
Exactly. Yes, her and I can go off for an hour. But no, I think he will be tested while he's in Grand Rapids, and I think that's what he needs. And to that point, his first game, 27 shots. That's a healthy workload, and he stopped 26 of them. So I think that as long as he continues to see a consistent workload, and he's consistently seeing a healthy dose of shots, that's going to get him into a groove. That's going to get him into his rhythm. And when he comes back to Detroit, because like you said, it's a conditioning stint, not alone. He's not sent down there like Vrana. He'll in theory, he'll have his mojo going, and that's when you can throw him in goal in Detroit, and he should be feeling it. And maybe that's when we'll see. I think that it doesn't mean for sure that he'll get in his groove and come to Detroit and be lights out. But I think that, like I said, I think they work more for goalies, because goalies, they need the workload to get into that groove. So I think this will work out for Ned. The team has said they haven't given up on him yet. Neither have I. And I think that this conditioning stint could honestly be exactly what he needs to sort of rediscover his game.
You both mentioned two things that I wanted to bring up. A, the mental aspect of the game, and B, just the engagement within a game. You talk to goalies that see 15, 20 shots a game and they feel cold. They don't get into a groove, like you said, Devin. And so when you're seeing 30, 40, shots a game, it's more consistent. You're more involved in the game. You're having to be engaged. And then all of that is mental, right? That comes into the mental aspect. Is if you're making 95% of those saves, 97%, whatever 26 to 27 is, you're not only engaged in the game, but you're performing well. And that's going to boost your mental, confidence is going to boost, just how you are visioning yourself playing at that moment. And so it both kind of go hand in hand to me. Is when you have a goalie that can be engaged in the game and is performing well, that's going to help the mental aspect. And like you said, this is a 2-week conditioning stint. And I think Ned's going to come back even stronger because of that. So I'm very optimistic about this. And I'm excited to see him get back in Detroit and see what he can do with a healthy boost of confidence. So that will probably be in the next week or so. All right, moving along. Steve Yzerman and Sean Horkoff were spotted at the World Junior Championship. What would a top 10 pick in this year's draft mean for the Red Wings rebuild? And Devin, I'm going to start with you.
In short, it would mean putting one of the finishing touches on the rebuild. I think that I know we talked about how December is probably their most important month of the season. But now this is where I think you can make the argument that January is the most important month of the season. This is where they're going to decide whether they're selling or whether they're staying put. I don't know if they're really going to buy at the deadline. I think at best you're looking at a year where they just kind of keep what they have and go forward with it, and sell off fringe parts. But it depends on how they perform this year. And if they fall off this month, I think they're going to be all in on, selling and selling hard. And this is the draft to like really invest that into. I think that they could really use another first round pick because loaded, let me tell you. Now, what would a top 10 pick mean? It would mean that they have to endure some more suffering this year in order to just get into that range. But when they do, they'll get a player that is that very well could be a cornerstone piece of their team. And by that, I don't mean like a generational talent like Connor McDavid. I mean a cornerstone piece like a Dylan Larkin or like a even like a Mo Seider at this point, where it's a player that will be part of your franchise for the next decade plus, and that you can build around, and that will be part of your core when you're competing for Stanley Cups. There's some you go through the Red Wings system and see where they have what they have and what they don't have. I still think they could use one more center that they feel good about being a top 6 guy. I have my reservations about how high Marco Kasper can get. I do think he's going to be a darn good prospect, but if they could get, a purebred top 6, even top line center, that makes me feel real confident about having a 1-2-3 punch of that guy, Kasper and Larkin for the next 5-10 years. And then they could also get a winger to help complement Lucas Raymond. There are other guys on the wings, and they could even potentially, depending on where they're at, depending on how things shake out, get another right-handed defenseman, because I think that's where they're the shallowest right now. And if they can get a difference maker there, then you have Seider, that guy, and then Hronek as your bottom pairing right-handed defenseman, and that would be fantastic for this team. So what does it mean for the Red Wings? I think, like I said, it means putting the finishing touches on the rebuild and getting one more difference maker for the lineup that should feasibly push them forward into the team that they're building towards. I think this is going to be the last draft where they're really looking at the top guys, and that's part of the reason why Yzerman and Horkoff were watching the games yesterday.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with what you just said there, Devin. And Logan, I'm going to give you the final word on this since you are our prospect guru here at the Hockey Writers. But so I think there's two ways to look at this. To answer the question, a top 10 pick in this year's draft means the Red Wings are going to have a very, very rough second half of the season, unless they hit some lottery luck, which we all know does not happen to Detroit.
In Detroit?
Yeah, right. So it's either going to be a really, really rough second half of the season with selling some pieces that allows Detroit to make it to the top 10 in the draft, or it's going to be a lot of lottery luck. So I think either way there, it's not something that we should expect. I think they're going to be outside the top 10, but that's okay. I think Yzerman and Horkoff were more at the World Junior Championships to try and find those diamond in the rough type players if they can for later in the draft, just because there were so many good players there at this tournament that's stepped up and stood out. And this draft is so deep that you could find someone that might drop just based on all the other options that are out there. So having, knowing what those options are when it gets to you later in that draft, I think that's probably more of the reason why they were there. But like I said, we'll turn it over to our prospect guru because he knows every single player from the World Juniors middle name. Did you know that? Fun fact. Just kidding.
Just don't test me on it.
Put him on the spot.
I promise I know it. Just don't ask for it.
All right, Logan, what are your thoughts on Yzerman and Horkoff being spotted at the World Juniors and what a top 10 pick in this year's draft would mean for the Red Wings?
Well, I'll just kind of copy what Devin said at first, and that's just it would mean we're a lot closer to the rebuild being done because the top 10 in this draft is going to be real good. There's been lots of talk about the draft being deeper than usual, and that is true in my opinion as well. Getting a top 10 pick in this year's draft is roughly equivalent to a top 5 pick in a lot of recent drafts.
Maybe even top 3.
Sure. Yeah. In some of these drafts.
Yeah.
So like you were talking about some centers that could maybe go in that range that have top 6 upside. You could look at like a Braden Yeager or like Riley Height. These are guys that have the upside to be a little more dominant offensively than Marco Kasper looks like he might be. Who knows? That wouldn't hurt to have one of those guys in there. If you're looking for right-handed defensemen that, who knows, could go in that range. David Reinbacher, Austrian defenseman, who's kind of built in a similar mold to Mo Sider. I'm not saying he is Mo Sider, but he's big. He's good defensively. He's got some untapped offensive potential. Or you could look at the Swede, Axel Sandin Pellikka, who is just a smooth offensive defenseman. He looked really good at the World Juniors. There's tons of options. The team can kind of take their pick, convince themselves that this is the best player, and great. There's tons of great players in that range. Also, they will have to endure fans will have to endure some more losses to get there. But to be honest, based on points percentage, Detroit is 13th last in the league right now. So to go from where we are now to a top 10 pick, either you have to lose a few more games, not a lot worse of a record, but a bit worse, or I don't know, get some lottery luck. But we all know that's not going to happen. But that would take you to either the 3rd or the 4th overall pick, which would be basically equivalent to a 1st overall pick in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But
I would be okay with a 3rd or 4th overall pick.
Yeah, imagine you bag someone like, I don't know, Michkov.
Yeah,
Michkov,
because he's kind of falling a little. Leo Carlson probably would have gone 1st overall the last 3 or 4 drafts.
Yeah.
Not to mention Fantilli and Bedard.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options right now.
Yeah, like the top 5 are absolute franchise changers, really, top 4 or 5. But yeah, anyone you'll get in the top 10 is going to be, like Devin said, a real cornerstone piece.
Absolutely.
Could honestly find the best player on the team at 10th overall.
Yeah.
There's a decent shot. So that doesn't sound so bad. But also 13th overall, you'll have a great shot too. You'll have a good pick.
I mean, we were just talking at the beginning of the season, we thought the Wings pick was going to be in the purgatory state that teens, the 13 through 18, 19. But if they're closer to that 13 and lose a few more games or get a little bit of lottery luck and end up in the top 10, that would not be a bad situation for this team to be in because of all the potential of the prospects coming up, the guys who are already there, and just what this team has already been able to do systematically in the last year with their leadership changes. So top 10 would be amazing. I'm personally not holding my breath for it, but I will be jumping on the sofa if it happens. So let's go. All right, well, that's going to lead us to our final rush of the day. Devin, what do the Wings do with their goalie situation once Ned is back?
They waive Hellberg.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Logan, same question. Is the answer the same?
I think they give Ned a few games to decide if he's the one that gets waived.
Yeah, I like that. I think same thing. I think you immediately plug Ned back into the number 2, but if he doesn't perform in the first few games back, then maybe he is the one that gets waived over Hellberg. All right, Logan, where do you expect the Wings draft pick to land?
12th overall.
Okay, Devin?
I'm going to predict a lot of pain down the stretch, and I will say they pick 9th overall.
Ooh. All right, I'm going to stick in the teens, and I'm going to go 14th. I'm going to say 14th. All right, well, if we still need to convince you after our first 2 plugs, make sure to use Ticket IQ for all your event needs. With A through F ratings on every transaction, you'll never miss out on a great deal. That's going to be it for this edition of The Grind Line. From all of us here at the Hockey Writers and our team here on The Grind, we'll see you next week with a special guest.